what I wanted to talk to you today about, Bryon, is a couple of things. But one is some things that we need to do this time of year. And for me, I think it's a couple of things. One, it's learning how to water correctly in the heart of summer when you've got fluctuations in the amount of moisture you're getting from Mother Nature, when to stake and prop up, or maybe some things to do that you don't have to do that. I know some people don't like to because it's an eyesore. I'm more about creating opportunities for seeing the foliage. So I think it's better than that. And then some other things that we should do. I think what we should be feeding stuff now is another thing. So let's start with the watering. We had George Ball here from Burpee Seed Company. And, for vegetables, he said, definitely you want to be watering in the mornings, right?
Sure.
Not the evenings. A lot of people with their schedule wait till the evenings water before they go to bed. It's a better shot for most situations this time of year to try to get that drink in the morning. Do you want to give it a little second shot in the afternoon? Talk to me about what your thoughts are about that.
Sure. Well, with watering, I think maybe what he was referring to was, moisture on the leaves. If you water at night, that can cause some mildew problems, whereas in the morning it has a chance the wind and the sun will dry it out a little bit.
It evaporated. Can that water droplet there, though, cause damage on some of your plants if you water in the morning and it's there as a prism with the sun coming into it? And can it cause some leaf damage if it doesn't want to evaporate as quickly?
No, not really. I mean, it has a chance to, if it's depending on the time that you do it. I mean, if you do it when the sun's already feeling really hot, then that's kind of a problem. But if you're doing it in the morning, like I think he was referring to,
right,
that's a better
So you don't want to wait till the sun's established,
right,
and on a totally sunny day, you don't want to be watering middle of the day, because you can actually do a couple things: shock your plant, and then also cause some damage to the leaves. The other aspect that I think it's hard to teach people who are kind of not as experienced is it's not frequency. It's about depth of watering and getting a good soaking intermittently. Plants actually like a cycle where they're wet for a while and then they dry out and then they get wet again. They don't necessarily like to be all wet all the time or all dry all the time, right?
Right. In general, most plants, whether it's outdoor plants or an indoor house plant, they want to dry out. A good general rule of thumb is to let it dry out. If you stick your two fingers in the soil, you should be able to pick up some soil and rub it between your fingers. It should be kind of crumbly, and then it's time to water because that's dried out. But if it's really moist all the time, that can cause root rot. And generally, yes, plants do not like to be thoroughly wet all the time. They do like to dry out in the garden as well. And a good general rule of thumb is 1 to 2 inches of water per week.
Now, how do I measure that if I don't understand? Like, as a meteorologist, I kind of have a feeling about how much that is, and there's a rain gauge, but soil moisture sensors are becoming a dime a dozen. They're cheap and they're easy to get. I mean, is that at this point, when we're in 2021, we have the technology, is that something to invest in so we can kind of keep an eye on it rather than trusting our senses on that kind of thing?
Sure. I think that's a good option. Anything that gives you that information is worth having. For me, I alternate gardens. I have about 16 flower beds around my house. I mean, I don't water them each one every day. I'll do a couple one day, a couple the next. So you just kind of have to judge. I would say daily watering is not a good thing for any garden. Now, heat sometimes plays a factor. If we're going through really hot 100-degree weather spells, then you definitely want to keep a better eye on the soil.
Right. And we're talking about a spell of 2 or 3 days. One day is not going to problem. And then the other thing is, there are some, I know my hydrangeas are in a spot where they get the full morning sun. And so on those days midsummer where it's really searing and they can start wilting and drooping a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe, I think there's a lot of those kinds of plants that we see where they'll say full sun or partial shade. Yeah. I think you have to really try to give credence to maybe giving that partial shade in the afternoon with maybe planting it near something that the sun angle will give, you don't have to create shade artificially. You can think about where the shade's going to be in the afternoon and plant accordingly, those kinds of things.
Sure. Or some plants you can give shade by planting them next to a taller perennial, just depends on each individual garden.
To listen to the full episode, just click the links below. And never miss a podcast by subscribing to Everything Under the Sun on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. New episodes every Friday.